The Virex core world was a nightmare made real. It hung in space like a wound, black, jagged, pulsing with dark energy. Towers rose like broken bones from the surface. Machines moved without end, building more ships, more drones, more soldiers, for the war. Inside that horror, Ethan Blake and his team moved like ghosts. They had stolen a Virex vessel, using Kale's knowledge to pass through enemy lines unnoticed. Now they were inside the heart of the collective, the Overmind's chamber. Once we plant the virus, Mara Langston whispered, checking her gear. We have 10 minutes before it spreads. That's our window. We won't get a second. Chance, Daniel Cho added, gripping his sidearm. Lena Torres looked at the massive doors ahead. Then let's make this fast. Kyle stepped forward. His half-machine body trembled slightly. He could feel the Overmind calling to him, trying to pull him back into the hive. I will distract it, he said. Go. I will hold it as long as I can. Ethan nodded. Stay alive. We're coming back for you. With a final look, Kale walked toward the central node, vanishing into the darkness. The rest of the team moved fast. Inside the chamber, wires the size of tree trunks pulsed with energy. Lights flickered in strange patterns like the Virex were already sensing something wrong. This is it, Lena said, pulling out the virus drive. Let's fry their brains. She plugged it in. A message appeared on the screen. Upload initiated. 9:59 remaining. They didn't wait. They turned and ran. Behind them, alarms screamed. The walls shook. The Virex began to react. Doors slammed shut. Turrets unfolded from the ceiling. Enemies poured in, half-human, half-machine soldiers with cold eyes and no fear. Gunfire echoed through the halls. Move! Ethan shouted. They fought their way through, bullets bouncing off their armor. Daniel took down 2 Virex with a single grenade blast. Mara covered their flank, firing until her weapon overheated. Then they reached the exit. Outside, the USS Dakota waited in orbit, engines burning hot. Come on, Mara muttered as they sprinted toward the ship. The ramp lowered just in time. They jumped on board, breathless. Get us out of here, Ethan ordered. The Dakota roared away from the planet's surface. Explosions lit up behind them as the virus spread faster than expected. Back on the core world, chaos erupted. Virex, soldiers froze mid-step. Their eyes flickered. Some dropped to their knees. Others screamed as their minds broke free from the Overmind's control. In the center of it all, Kale stood alone. He watched the lights dim. He smiled. And then the planet exploded. From space, the Dakota drifted silently, watching the fireball grow. Silence filled the bridge. He did it, Mara said softly. So did we, Ethan replied. Across the galaxy, the change was instant. Without the Overmind, the Virex fell apart. Scattered, leaderless. Some tried to keep fighting, but without direction they were easy targets. Alien fleets finished what humans had started. Peace talks began soon after. Humanity was no longer seen as weak or new. They were feared, respected, and above all, remembered. Back on Earth, people gathered in cities, cheering the return of the Dakota. Kids wore patches with Ethan's name. Soldiers stood taller. Hope burned brighter than ever. On board the Dakota, Ethan stood once again on the observation deck, looking at the stars. Mara joined him. You think it's over? She asked. No, he said. But for now, we've earned a break. She smiled. Good, because I was thinking about taking some leave. He chuckled. You? Taking a break? Even heroes need to breathe sometimes. Outside, the stars glowed like old friends. The war was won, but the universe was still vast, still unknown. And humanity? They were just getting started. The galaxy was watching now. After the battle at Vega Prime, there was no denying it. Humans were not just surviving the war against the Virex, they were turning the tide. The footage of the USS Dakota leading the charge spread across every human colony and even reached alien worlds. Some species that once laughed at humanity now asked for human officers on their ships. Others watched closely, trying to understand what made these humans so different. Captain Ethan Blake stood on the observation deck of the Dakota, looking out at the stars. He wasn't smiling. He knew this victory was only one step. The Rex would return, and next time they would be ready. Mara Langston walked up beside him. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, arms crossed, watching the same stars. "You're thinking about the next move," she said. "I always am," he replied. She nodded. "So what's the plan?" Ethan turned to face her. "We go deeper." Back on Earth, the Galactic Concord held a special meeting. For the first time in history, humanity was offered a seat on the High Council. It was a sign of trust, of respect. But Ethan wasn't interested in politics. He had a war to win. He gathered his team in the Dakota's war room. Daniel Cho leaned over the table, eyes scanning maps and reports. Lena Torres sat with her boots on the desk, listening quietly. "We've hit them hard," Ethan said. "But we need to end this for good." Lena raised an eyebrow. "You thinking what I think you're thinking?" Ethan gave a small smile. "Yeah, we take the fight to them." Daniel looked up. "You mean strike their core world?" "That's suicide," Mara said. "Maybe," Ethan admitted. "But if we don't, they'll keep coming back. Stronger each time." They studied the data. The Virex were adaptive, too smart for normal tactics. But Mara had found something strange in their attack patterns. They weren't just reacting to humans. They were studying them. "They learn from every battle," she explained. "They copy our moves, improve on them. That's why we can't just keep fighting the same way." "So we do something they won't expect," Lena said. "Exactly," Ethan agreed. That's when they got help from an unlikely source, a Virex defector. His name was Kyle. Once part of the collective, he had somehow broken free. His body was still half machine, but his mind was his own again. He came to the Dakota with a warning and a plan. "They will adapt faster than you think," Kyle said. "But there is weakness inside them, buried deep. If we reach it, we can stop them." "What kind of weakness?" Mara asked. "A virus," Kale answered. "One that can shut down the overmind, but it must be uploaded from the inside." Ethan understood what that meant. "We have to get inside a Virex core world," he said. "Plant the virus ourselves." It was insane, a suicide mission. And yet, no one hesitated. Daniel cracked his neck. "I'm in." Lena grinned. "Wouldn't miss it." Mara looked at Ethan. "You know I'm not letting you go without me." Kale bowed his head slightly. "Then it is decided." As they prepared for the mission, word spread through the fleet. Other captains came forward, offering support. Alien admirals who once doubted humans now sent messages of respect. For the first time, humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were leading the charge, and they were going after the enemy's heart. Not with brute force, but with courage, with cleverness, and with fire in their souls, because the Virex thought they could predict humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The attack on Vega Prime came without warning. One moment, the colony was peaceful, ships coming and going, families walking through streets lit by artificial suns. The next, the sky turned dark as enemy vessels tore through space like shadows. Given form, the Virex had returned. They struck hard and fast, dropping from warp above the planet's orbital defense line. Their weapons fired beams of black energy that cut through shields and stations alike. Communication lines went dead. Defense turrets melted into slag. Panic spread across the surface. On board the USS Dakota, Ethan Blake watched the reports come in with a cold stare. "They're not just attacking," Mara Langston said. "They're trying to take the planet." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then we make sure they don't." He opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "This is Admiral Blake. All ships fall in behind the Dakota. We're hitting them where it hurts." The fleet responded quickly. Dozens of human frigates, destroyers, and fighter wings fell into formation. They had trained for this. They had fought for this. And now, they were ready. But Ethan knew brute force wouldn't win this. The Virex had numbers, they had strength. But humans had something better. Plan B. Back at the war room, Daniel Cho stood over the tactical map. He tapped a few commands, pulling up hidden traps laid months ago. "See this?" he said. "We've been setting these up ever since the last battle. Mines, drone swarms, even fake command signals." Lena Torres grinned. "We made them think the system was weak. Let them walk right into our trap." Exactly as planned, the Virex moved deeper into the system, confident in their attack. They didn't see the mines hidden in asteroid belts or the cloaked drones waiting in orbit. Then the Dakota gave the order. Now. The trap sprang to life. Mines exploded in bursts of fire, ripping through enemy hulls. Drones launched surprise attacks from all directions, firing missiles before vanishing again. Fighter wings dove in, striking key targets before disappearing into the chaos. The Virex scrambled. For the first time, they were caught off guard. "Keep pushing," Ethan shouted. The Dakota led the charge, flanked by the Wyoming and the Montana II, a new ship built to honor the fallen. Railguns thundered. Missiles streaked through the void. Fighters danced between wreckage and fire. Lena was in the heart of it all. She guided her team through targeting runs, blowing up a Virex command node that controlled half the invasion fleet. "We just took out their brain," she said, grinning. Daniel dove into enemy lines, flying so close to a Virex carrier that alarms started going off on board his own fighter. "I'm not turning back," he muttered. "Not this time." With a final push, he hit the throttle and jumped his fighter straight into the carrier's main engine. The explosion lit up the battlefield. Back on the Dakota, Ethan saw the shift. The Virex were losing control. "This is it," he said. "Final. Strike." He turned to navigation. "Take us in. Full speed." The Dakota surged forward, engines burning hot. Shields flickered under fire, but she kept moving. Mara stood beside him, watching the screen. "You know, most people would turn away when things get this bad." Ethan didn't look away. "Most people aren't us." The Dakota fired everything it had. Railgun rounds punched through armor. Missiles detonated inside enemy bays. Lasers burned through circuits and wires. The Virex flagship shook under the assault. Then it broke apart. A massive explosion filled the sky above Vega Prime. The remaining Virex ships hesitated. Then, one by one, they vanished into warp. The battle was over. Silence returned to the stars. Back on the planet, survivors cheered. Families hugged each other. Lights came back online in the cities below. The Virex had tried to take Vega Prime. They had failed, because humans had fought back, not just with weapons, but with heart, with clever plans, and with courage. As the Dakota drifted among the wreckage, Ethan looked at the stars. "We're not just surviving," he said quietly. "We're winning." And for the first time, it felt like the galaxy was finally listening. The battle at Epsilon 9 had changed everything. The USS Dakota and her crew were no longer just another human ship lost in the vastness of space. They were legends. The footage of their daring run against the Virex dreadnought played across every human colony and even spread to alien worlds. People watched it over and over, 4 ships charging into death, saving thousands. But Ethan Blake didn't feel like a hero. He stood alone on the observation deck of the Dakota, staring out at the stars. The ship was damaged, the crew tired, and the war wasn't over. Mara Langston found him there. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You're quiet," she said. "Just thinking," he replied. "About the ones we lost?" He nodded. "And about what comes next." Back on Earth, the Galactic Concord held an emergency meeting. Alien leaders who once laughed at humanity now listened when humans spoke. Some even asked for human officers to be placed on their ships. For the first time, humans weren't just allowed in the room. They were respected. On board the Dakota, things were changing too. Ethan was promoted to Rear Admiral and given command of a new task force made entirely of human ships. It was the first time the Concord had ever trusted humans with full control of their own fleet. Ethan knew he needed the best people he could find. He reached out to Daniel Cho, a former drone racer, from Mars who had joined the Navy after the last battle. Fast hands, faster mind, perfect for piloting strike fighters. Then there was Lena Torres, a weapons specialist with a wild reputation. Before joining the military, she had worked in the black market tech scene on Luna. If something needed to explode, she was the one to make it happen. Together they started building something new, a way to fight the Virex that didn't rely on brute strength or old alien tactics. They called it the Human Doctrine. It was based on three things: speed, surprise, and heart. "We don't have the biggest ships," Daniel explained during a strategy meeting. "So we don't try to fight like them. We hit fast, disappear, and hit again." Lena added, "And we use whatever works. Doesn't matter if it's not standard issue. If it explodes, it's good enough." Ethan watched as the team grew. More pilots, engineers, and tacticians joined. Each one brought something different, a mix of backgrounds, ideas, and styles. They trained hard. Simulations, live fire drills, ambush exercises. Every mission pushed them further, and slowly, the doctrine began to take shape. One night, Mara sat with Ethan in the mess hall. "You really think this will work?" she asked. "I know it will," he said. "Because we're not fighting like machines, we're fighting like humans. That's what scares the Virex." She smiled. "Yeah, because they can't predict us." Exactly 1 week later, the Virex struck again. A small human outpost near Proxima Centauri reported strange signals. Then came the silence. When scouts arrived, all they found was wreckage and empty husks of ships. The Virex were moving again. Ethan got the order: intercept and assess. He gathered his team. "This is our first real test," he told them. "We do this our way. Hit hard. Stay unpredictable, win." The Dakota led the fleet into deep space. Other human ships followed, small, fast, and ready. When they found the Virex patrol, they didn't wait. They didn't line up in neat formations like the aliens did. They attacked. Missiles flew. Fighters dove through enemy lines, railguns thundered in the dark, and for the first time the Virex didn't know what hit them. By the time the battle ended, the Virex ships were gone, and so was any doubt about the Human Doctrine. Across the galaxy, word spread. Humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were leading the charge, and they were only getting started. The stars above Epsilon 9 burned cold and distant as the battle began. The once quiet system had become a war zone. Alien dreadnoughts lined up in tight formation, firing heavy beams of energy into the void. Fighters darted like insects between the ships, launching missiles that lit up the dark. But nothing could match the sheer power of the Virex dreadnought. It loomed over the battlefield like a monster from legend. Its hull was black and jagged, pulsing with strange lights. It moved without sound, cutting through fleets like they were paper. Human ships tried to hold their line, but they were outgunned and outmatched. One by one, frigates exploded under the dreadnought's fire. Alien commanders panicked. Orders were shouted across comms, but no plan seemed to work. Captain Ethan Blake stood on the bridge of the USS Dakota, watching the chaos unfold. "Sir, we're losing too many ships," said Mara Langston, his XO. Her voice was tight with worry. "If we don't do something now, this whole fleet is going down." Ethan didn't answer right away. He stared at the screen, thinking. Then he turned to his crew. "This is it," he said. "We make our move." He opened a channel to all. "Human ships. Listen up. We can't beat that thing head on, but we can buy time for the civilians to escape. I'm leading the run. If you're with me, fall in." 3 other human frigates answered the call: the Wyoming, the Texas, and the Montana. They broke off from the main fleet and dove straight toward the Virex dreadnought. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Valon watched in disbelief. "What are they doing?" he asked. "They're charging the enemy," one of his officers replied. "No orders, no support, just them." From the safety of the evacuation convoy, civilians looked on in horror and awe as the 4 human ships raced toward certain death. Julia Reyes worked fast in engineering, pushing the Dakota's reactor beyond safe limits. Sweat ran down her. face as she rerouted power to shields and engines. "We're not coming back from this," she muttered. "Then let's make it count," Ethan said. The Dakota led the charge, weaving through fire and debris. Explosions filled the space around them. Enemy fighters swarmed like bees, firing bursts of dark energy. "Shields holding," Luis Garcia called from tactical. "Barely. Keep us moving," Ethan ordered. The dreadnought fired a massive beam of black light. It tore through the Texas, ripping it apart in seconds. The explosion lit up the battlefield. "No!" Mara shouted. There was no time to mourn. The Wyoming took a hit to its engine and fell behind. Only the Montana and the Dakota remained. "Stay with me," Ethan said. "I'm not going anywhere," Mara replied. They dove low beneath the dreadnought's main body, dodging turrets and fire. Julia gave them a final burst of speed. "Now!" Ethan shouted. The Montana launched everything it had: missiles, railguns, even decoys. The dreadnought's shields flickered under the assault. The Dakota followed up with a full broadside. Railgun rounds punched through weakened armor. Explosions bloomed along the dreadnought's side. For the first time, the monster hesitated. The distraction was enough. Across the battlefield, the civilian convoy finished its jump to safety. "Mission complete," Mara whispered. But the Dakota wasn't done yet. "Let's finish this," Ethan said. As the dreadnought turned to retaliate, the Montana rammed it at full speed. The impact sent shockwaves across the system. A massive explosion swallowed both ships whole. Silence. Then, from the smoke and fire, the Dakota emerged, battered, burning, but still flying. The dreadnought was damaged. Its movements slowed. Its fire became less precise. Alien forces regrouped. With the human sacrifice opening a path, the rest of the fleet pressed forward. And for the first time, the Virex began to retreat. Back on Earth, news of the battle spread like wildfire. People gathered in streets cheering the name of the Dakota. Families cried for those lost. Children dreamed of becoming heroes. Ethan Blake stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back, harder than ever. The battle near the exercise zone had left scars, on ships, on crews, and on the way the galaxy saw humans. The alien admirals could no longer pretend that humanity was just a weak newcomer. They had fought. They had won something important: respect. But there were bigger dangers out there. In the days that followed, reports came in from across human space. Strange signals, missing ships, deep space outposts going silent without warning. No one knew what was causing it, but Captain Ethan Blake had a feeling. He wasn't wrong. At a meeting aboard the Concord Central Station, the alien leaders debated what to do. Some said it was rogue pirates. Others believed it was a test by a rival faction. Only a few took the threat seriously. "We believe it is neither," said Admiral Valen of the Caithar fleet. "Our analysts have studied the wreckage from the attack. We now have an identification." A screen lit up behind him. It showed a twisted hull, black as night, with jagged edges and no visible weapons ports. "This is the Virex Collective," he continued. "A hive mind species known for total assimilation. They consume entire civilizations, turning them into machines. Once they take over a world, nothing organic survives." A heavy silence filled the room. Ethan sat with Mara Langston, his executive officer. She leaned closer and whispered, "If they're targeting us, we need to be ready." "We don't even know how to fight them yet," he replied. Back aboard the IOS Dakota, the crew worked hard to repair the damage from the last battle. Julia Reyes, the ship's engineering chief, was already running tests on a risky idea. "If we push the reactor core just a little more," she explained to a group of techs, "we can get a short burst of extra speed and firepower. Not much, but maybe enough to make a difference." "You mean like cheating?" one of the techs asked. "I mean using what we've got to its fullest," she said. Meanwhile, Mara was studying data from the enemy attack. She had noticed something strange about the way the Virex moved during the battle. They didn't act randomly. They followed patterns. "They're smart," she told Ethan later, "but they might also be predictable." If they think in patterns, then we can break them, he said. Exactly. The next day, the Dakota was ordered to join a larger Concord task force. Their mission was to investigate the last known location of a missing patrol fleet. The orders were clear: observe only. Do not engage. But when the fleet arrived at the coordinates, they found nothing but floating wreckage. Then the Virex struck. Without warning, dark ships emerged from warp. They moved fast, firing beams of black energy that tore through shields and armor alike. Battle stations, Ethan shouted. The Dakota shook under fire, alarms screaming through the halls. Shields holding barely, Luis Garcia called from. Tactical, evasive maneuvers, Ethan ordered. The Dakota rolled hard to port, dodging another shot. Other human ships did the same, but the alien warships weren't as lucky. 2 Zalari cruisers exploded within seconds. We can't hold. Like this, Mara warned. Ethan made a decision. We fall back. All human ships, regroup behind the asteroid field. The Dakota led the retreat, pulling the human frigates away from the main battle. The aliens kept fighting, but they were losing badly. From the safety of the asteroid field, Ethan watched the chaos unfold. The Virex were too strong for the current tactics. They needed something new. Time to try something crazy, he muttered. He turned to Julia. Can you activate that engine boost now? She grinned. Just been waiting for you to ask. Do it. As the Dakota and her sister ships roared back into the fight, engines glowing with boosted power, the tide began to shift again. For the first time, the Virex hesitated. They had expected fear. What they got was something else entirely. Humans. Fighting. Back harder than ever before. The battle was chaos. Alien warships fired bright beams of energy into the void, but the enemy ships moved like shadows. Fast, silent, and deadly. One moment they were there. The next, they were gone. They struck with precision, then vanished, before a counterattack could form. On the bridge of the U.S. Dakota, Captain Ethan Blake watched the screen as another alien cruiser exploded in a burst of fire and light. The enemy was tearing through the fleet. Sir, we're losing too many ships, Tactical Officer Luis Garcia shouted over the alarms. We can't just sit back and watch, Ethan said. We have to do something. He turned to Mara Langston, his executive officer. She stood beside him, eyes locked on the tactical display. If we go in, we might not come out, she said. Then we make sure we do, he replied. Before command could issue orders, Ethan made the call. All human ships, this is Captain Blake. Form up on the Dakota. We're going in. 3. Other human frigates responded. The US Wyoming, US Texas, and US Montana fell into formation behind the Dakota. They dove into the heart of the battle. Aliens watched from their flagship stunned. The humans weren't ordered to fight. They chose to. Those fools will get themselves killed, one Zalari admiral muttered. But then something happened that no one expected. The Dakota launched a full spread of railgun rounds followed by a volley of missiles. The enemy ship they targeted twisted in space trying to evade, but it wasn't fast enough. The barrage hit its flank, cracking the armor. Got a hit, Luis called. Keep firing, Ethan ordered. The Wyoming and Texas flanked another enemy vessel, unloading everything they had. The alien dreadnought took heavy damage and started to retreat. For the first time, the enemy hesitated. The tide of the battle began to shift, not because the humans had better weapons or faster ships, but because they fought with heart. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't follow rigid tactics. They adapted, they pushed forward, and they saved lives. After nearly 20 minutes of brutal fighting, the enemy withdrew. They vanished into warp space as quickly as they had arrived. Silence returned to the battlefield. Smoke and debris floated among the wreckage of fallen ships. Survivors scrambled to rescue crew from damaged vessels. The Dakota and her human companions remained intact, though bruised and burned. Over the comms, an alien commander's voice came through. It was calm, but filled with something new. Respect. This is Admiral Valen of the Cathar Fleet. Captain Blake, and thank you. Without your intervention, we would have lost more than we did. Ethan exhaled slowly. Just doing our job, Admiral. Marla gave him a small smile. Looks like we made an impression. Back on Earth, news of the battle spread fast. Footage of the human ships charging into the fray was replayed across networks. People cheered. Soldiers stood taller. Kids dreamed of flying into space. For the first time, humanity wasn't seen as weak. They were seen as fighters, but not everyone was happy. In a hidden base deep in alien space, a group of leaders gathered around a glowing table. They studied reports from the battle. Humans, one muttered. They should not have been able to hurt us. Another spoke, voice cold and sharp. They are unpredictable. That makes them dangerous. Then we must prepare, said the leader. Next time they will not be so lucky. Meanwhile, aboard the Dakota, the crew celebrated in their own way. Some clapped each other on the back. Others shared quiet moments of relief. Ethan walked the halls, checking on his people. He stopped at engineering where Julia Reyes was, already working on repairs. You think they'll try again? She asked without looking up. Yeah, he said. And next time, we'll be ready. She nodded. Good. I've got some ideas. Out in the stars, the enemy was regrouping, preparing for another strike. But so were the humans, and this time they wouldn't just survive. They would fight back. The stars had always been a mystery to humans, but now they were filled with voices not their own. Humanity had finally taken its place among the stars, joining the Galactic Concord, a vast alliance of alien species that governed much of known space. It was a proud moment, one that many on Earth had dreamed of for generations. But pride didn't always bring respect. Among the alien fleets, human ships looked out of place. They were smaller, slower, and built with older tech compared to the sleek, glowing vessels of the Zilari or the massive dreadnoughts of the Cathar. The alien admirals spoke in polite tones when addressing human officers, but their eyes told another story. They saw humans as primitive, loud, emotional, and unrefined. Even the humans' most advanced warship, the USS Dakota, was considered outdated by galactic standards. Captain Ethan Blake stood on the bridge of the Dakota, watching the view screen as his ship drifted near a massive alien carrier. The carrier's hull shimmered with energy shields and its weapons ports pulsed with stored power. Next to it, the Dakota looked like a child's toy. They don't think we belong here, said Mara Langston, the ship's executive officer. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the alien fleet. Doesn't matter what they think, Ethan replied, though he knew she was right. We're here to prove ourselves. Easier said than done, she muttered. Earlier that day, the Concord had announced joint military exercises, an event meant to test cooperation between member races. But everyone knew it was also a show of strength. The alien admirals would be watching, comparing human performance to their own. Mara turned to the crew. Listen up. This isn't just a drill. It's a chance to show them who we are. Don't let them underestimate us. The crew nodded, some more confident than others. Many of them had grown tired of being treated like students in a school run by adults. They wanted to fight, to earn their place, not just survive in the shadows of alien empires. As the exercise began, the alien ships moved in perfect formation. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical. Then came the human ships, 6 frigates, including the Dakota. They tried to keep pace, but their engines groaned under the strain. Their weapon systems lagged behind the targets. Their maneuvers were less fluid, more reactive. From the observation deck aboard the flagship, alien officers watched with raised eyebrows and quiet laughter. Look at those turns, one said. Like watching a drunk pilot. Their sensors can't keep up, said another. How do they even navigate? Back on the Dakota, Ethan clenched his jaw. He heard every word over the comms relay. The insults stung, but he kept his voice calm. Stay focused, he told his crew. We stick to the plan. But then something unexpected happened. A warning alarm blared through the Dakota's bridge. Sir, unknown contacts emerging from warp, shouted the tactical officer. On screen, a group of dark, jagged ships appeared near the edge of the exercise zone. They weren't part of the drill. Identify, Ethan ordered. No match in database. Scanning. Nothing. They're not broadcasting any signals. Battle stations, he said, standing up. Shields up. Weapons online. The alien fleet hesitated. Their commanders weren't sure if this was part of the exercise or a real threat. But Ethan didn't wait for permission. This is Captain Blake of the Yas Dakota. Unidentified vessels. Identify yourselves and stand down. There was no response. Then the enemy fired. A beam of black energy sliced through one of the alien frigates, cutting it in half. Chaos erupted. Evasive maneuvers, Ethan shouted. The Dakota rolled hard, to port dodging another shot. Explosions bloomed across the battlefield. Alien ships scrambled into position, but they were caught off guard. The new enemy was fast, silent, and deadly. Target lock. Tactical called. Fire everything we've got, Ethan ordered. The Dakota unleashed a volley of missiles and railgun rounds. The enemy ship barely flinched. Its armor absorbed most of the damage. Those shields are too strong, Mara said. Then we hit harder, Ethan replied. He turned to navigation. Take us in close. Full speed. Sir, that's suicide. Do it. The Dakota surged forward, weaving through fire and debris. Other human ships followed suit, each one diving into the fray despite the odds. Aliens watched in shock as the humans charged headfirst into battle. They hadn't expected courage. They hadn't expected heart. And for the first time, they started to feel fear.